Sound like everyone can hear me?
Okay. There you.
Oh, looks like you're muted.
Oh, I am. How?
Oh, I can write it
Okay,
on
great.
low. That's what it is. Here we go. Get all these kinks out.
Okay, better. Cool.
Mubarak's like 2 minutes early.
Look at him, mashallah.
Yeah, see, you know what? Y'all don't know what it takes for me to actually.
I believe you. Nah, this man's super busy, man. He got a hospital job, multiple wives, even out here, mashallah. Makes time for us. Next time. Oh, what did I just do? Yikes. We're good.
Oh, Mubarak, oh, there he is.
Yeah.
And that.
Here, man. Okay, let's see. Let me know when we're ready to rock and roll.
1 minute.
Got 1 minute, and y'all could just run with it with the outline and just go wherever you want with it. Pretty much open. I'll try to remember. I was thinking of all. It's amazing how much stuff you forget. Like, and I was thinking about all this stuff. Like, oh, I gotta say that. I gotta bring that up. So y'all just take it, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, don't even worry about it. We got you. Is my sound good?
Yeah, you're fine.
Yep. Good. There you go.
Let's see. Let's see what happens. Okay. All right. We ready?
Yep.
All right. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. And I right here. Hold up 1 second. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Sure, I'll mess this up. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الذين يبلغون رسالات الله ويخشونه ولا يخشون أحدا إلا الله وكفى بالله حسيبا. Allah says in Surah Al-Ahzab regarding the messengers, and this is an example for us as well, that Allah says that those who convey the messages of Allah, the messages, whatever Allah conveys to us, be it through revelation, through the Quran, or the Sunnah for us, Allah is saying those who convey the messages of Allah and fear Him and do not fear anyone but Allah, and sufficient is Allah as an accountant. And this ayah is important for all of us as Muslims, and especially in our situation, because we have a atmosphere in which more and more people are realizing the truth. They're realizing what's right and what's wrong, but they can't take that step to say out loud, this is wrong. They can't take that next step to say the truth is actually this and not that. They can't speak up when someone is speaking falsehood and say, excuse me, I don't believe that, and that's not true. They can't even say to their spouse, to their husband or their wife, Assalamu alaikum, Zojati, my wife, my husband, I don't believe in this 7 sultans or any of this other stuff. There could be 2 people in the same house. They both don't even believe in it anymore, but they're too afraid to even mention it to one another. And perhaps if they spoke out and said something, that it would relieve so much pressure. There are countless amount of people who are in this position, and we should look at these ayahs in which Allah says that the people who are most beloved to Allah, and the people who get the most reward from Allah, and the people who are held in a high status and honored by Allah are those people who do this. They relay what Allah says, and they relay what His Messenger says, and they relay the truth about Al-Islam and their beliefs, and they don't fear anyone. What do they say? Yakhshawnahu, they fear Allah, wala yakhshawna ahadan illallah, and they don't fear anyone except Allah. So this is something that we should never allow our standing upon the truth and living upon the truth, and even if we have to die, let it be upon the truth. Lots of us are passing away without making our stance clear. And we should make it clear, and make it clear as soon as possible, because we don't know when we will die, but we want the reward from Allah for being the people who are on the front end instead of who came in on the tail end, only because everyone else had come out and say, this is the truth. Let's stand up and do it before it is too late. One last ayah before I close, and that is when Allah says, Inna alladhina qalu, indeed the people who say, رَبَّنَا اللَّهُ ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا فَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. Allah says in Surah Al-Ahzab that the people who say, Allah is our Lord. They say Allah is our Lord, and then they remain on the right course. There will be no fear concerning them, nor will they grieve. And وَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا يَحْزَنُونَ. Khawfun is you fearing. No khawf, there won't be any fear. That's you fearing something in the future, something that could possibly happen in the future. You fearing that, so you keep quiet and don't speak out. You know things are adding up and things are wrong, and you're sitting there. You see all the information coming through, but you won't say anything, fearing something that could happen in the future. Allah is saying that the people who fear Allah, and they say Allah is my Lord, and I'm going to stand up for it, they don't have no fear of that of the future. And yahsanun, the hazan, that hazan is about you being sad over something that happened in the past. And the true believers, they don't get sad over what happened in the past. Yeah, they might have torn up our families and disrupted our friendships and did all these things, but we're not sad about it. We don't do that. Yeah, maybe it was an unfortunate thing that happened. We're not sad about the past, and we're not scared about the future. We're gonna say Allah is our Lord. We're gonna stand firmly upon that, and we will speak the truth, because this is what Allah commands us to do. May Allah accept it from us and everyone else who decides to do that. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun alal mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
Ameen. A great intro by Mallar, alhamdulillah. And I'm honored to be a part of this historic episode, right, where we get to interview, right, enemy number one, all right. Many consider him to be the first person to ever be the enemy of Alphabet, all right, all of them apparently, but only just one, all right. And he is like, they hate this man for passion, all right. And honestly, knowing Jafar for the past 3 years, I can't really see why, other than just the cult stuff, all right. So today, the R2F show is going to interview Jafar, as you could probably see in the title, and he's going to go over parts of his life, not the full thing, because we're going to do many episodes, inshallah, 2 or 3. And Jafar will get to talk about his experiences, and eventually we'll get to Mubarak, and we'll get back to more interviews in the future, inshallah. So Jafar, you have the floor, and we'll start with you.
So, alhamdulillah, rabbil alameen, as-salatu was-salamu ala Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So, just to give a little background about myself in a nutshell, I'm 43 now, 43 years old. Always got to do the math. After you get to a certain point, you just stop counting. It's around like the 40 age. So 43 years old. I have 6 kids, 2 non-cult kids, 2 ex-cult kids. One is allegedly off the juice, and then 2 that are teetering between in a custody situation, which we'll get to it eventually. I grew up in upstate New York, Binghamton, New York. More appropriately, I grew up in Deposit, New York, which is the location of Islamberg, the headquarters of TMOA. So just a little background about mainly my parents and coming up, just so you can kind of see where some of the principles that I get, my family members get, really is instilled from our parents. So my mother is white, my father is obviously black, and like blackety black. So, and this is upstate New York in the 70s, where if anybody's been in upstate New York, it's basically Hicksville. If you looked at like the Trump versus like Democrat versus Republican, you look at the colors, every place except for downstate where New York City is Republican territory. So we, like, right across the street, we still got Trump banners hanging up, all this type of stuff. So it's very racist. Even still today, it's a little bit better now, but especially back then, it was not a thing to have interracial relationships. So right from the beginning, our family started as, kind of like setting the tone of, kind of going against injustice or going against the grain, staying up for what is right. My father has always, he wasn't the most educated guy. He was actually partly dyslexic. But he's a very smart guy, as a lot of African Americans are. He was a founding person in this area to establish martial arts in the area. And just a little backstory on that is he was taking martial arts from one of the big teachers, actually national teachers, named Heidi Ochai. And he was taking martial arts. And back then, like, so in class, my father would be whooping everybody up. But back then they used to go around and do demonstrations, right, to get more students. And when they go and do the demonstrations, the teacher, who's a Japanese guy, karate guy, would have all the white students do all the break the boards, do the exhibitions, the sword fighting, and while the black students just kind of sat there. But then when it was time to show like a self-defense thing, they would use the black people as like the bad guys to get beat up in front of all the crowd. So eventually my father was fighting the actual teacher. He was doing a sparring exhibition, and my father had a boxing background. So long story short, my father ended up beating the teacher in an exhibition, broke off, started his own school, and it was known as like the black school in the area, right? So my father would take in all the minority students, and all the poor white students would come in. And this is back in the day when like you actually had to go to different schools and challenge each other. And we got a name because we were known as the school that could fight. No one could beat us in fights. So that's like a little bit like going against the grain, standing up. My mother, she's actually very instrumental in working to get Jesse Jackson, as far as his presidential run, getting him nominated, getting him to be on the ballot, and those sorts of things. And we grew up watching all like the documentaries, all the different the movies on race, like color. This was like ingrained in us. So we had like a natural thing in our family to stand up against injustice, speak out for what is right, speak out against what is wrong, even from a young age. And so eventually my father got a job in Deposit, New York, which is a little small hick town, like cornfields and all that. We moved to Deposit, New York, and we moved to a place where not only are we one of two black families, we're the only Muslims until you get to Binghamton, which is, about 30, 45 minutes away. So we're pretty much growing up in an area, we're isolated. We're by ourselves. Grow up, kids calling you nigger, bullies, all these different things, getting in fights every day after school until, finally you get accepted and they realize like they can't mess like these. So growing up in that environment. And, I was an athlete growing up. My parents always, they pretty much indoctrinated us. Like we're going to college. It's important to get educated. So like anybody brings up this thing, like, you got your education because Jelani influenced you, or absolutely not whatsoever. There came a point, and you guys can jump in and ask questions anytime. I'm gonna just keep going, and if I'm rambling, just jump in. So I'm growing up till like 15, and at this point, like we're established in the town. Only black people there, only Muslims there. We got a reputation. We had a great reputation with the people in the town. And there was I meet these African Americans that are going to this school, Hancock, which is Deposit's rival school, right? This is who we battle in sports and all that. And my first encounter with them or the first time I met them was a basketball game. I was in 7th grade, and we had a very good basketball team. I was the only black kid on the team, of course. I was the token black guy, right?
Sure.
But I wasn't even the best on the team at that point. But we trashed their 7th grade team. They had a couple of guys from the land, as you would say, on the team. They weren't that good at that point. But then I noticed they had kufis on, and I was like, "Oh, they're Muslim." So mind you, again, our family's been Muslim since I've been a baby. Before TMOA, before meeting anybody from TMOA, and actually, it was our mother who like made the push for our family to become Muslim, right? So we became Muslim. I don't remember not being a Muslim. So if you look at our family, my older brother, who's about a year and a half older than me, his name's Franco. My name is James. Every other kid, we have 12. There's 12 of us. There's 3 older than us. What's that?
That's a pretty big family for y'all after have been Muslim beforehand, because usually that's just like a Muslim thing. It's like you'll see like, okay, the Muslim family like who's has like 10 kids, so like that's something that you see often with the family. So alhamdulillah, you got a big family.
So under me there is 7, and everybody under me has a Muslim name. So, but I've never, as far as they converted when I was like a baby. So I've been Muslim all my life, right? So in that time, I noticed they had kufis on, and I'm like, oh, these guys are Muslim. So the 8th grade team was like getting ready to play, and I go over, and I remember the individual I went over to, and I go, and this is just a sign of like, you look back and you see different signs of things. And I go up and I say, Assalamu alaikum. And the guy looks at me like, and he doesn't return salams and goes, "You're Muslim?" I was like, "Yeah." And just kind of turned around and shrugged me off. And I was like, all right, whatever. That now was it.
Full circle, huh? Because like they don't turn Islams now either. So
yeah, so right back to square one.
Right back to square one, yeah.
And so these are the same guys that end up being my alleged like close companions. Because at the next year there was like a redistricting or something, but they had to start coming to Deposit School. So then all of the Muslim guys from the land all started coming to Deposit High School. So we were on the same football teams. And it was funny because I went from battling racism as being like the only black guy, me and my brother and all that, until now an influx of black guys come in, and now they're calling me the white boy. So it's like, no, okay, now I get it from this side because I'm not talking like them. I'm talking proper English, and now I'm the white boy now. Oh, you talk like a white boy. Oh, all right, okay. I don't know what that means, but all right. But
speaking proper English is Molly Jaffer.
So let me jump in here for a couple of things, because number one, I think one of the narratives, and Amr, you can keep it with some of the questions that we had, like some questions that people had posted, if they post any, or some of the questions that we got beforehand.
Okay.
If you can keep up with those, because I'm gonna I might go off to the side a little bit with a few, but I'm just looking at, and if I cover some of those things, and just we can just skip them. But the thing coming to mind as I'm listening to your story, Jaffer, and I'm looking at it with a very critical eye, at this point, because this is we're interviewing you, okay, but this is not like
I'm on the stand.
You're on the hot seat, basically. You're on the hot seat. So the number one thing, as a Jamadi would say, all right, you were Muslim since a baby. What type of Islam, or what type of Muslim was your father? What type of Islam did he teach you? What type of Islam did he practice? Did he practice Islam? Did he teach you any Islam? Because the narrative is you learned everything when you got to TMOA or with Jelani, and then you took what you learned and then attacked him with it. So what did your father teach you as far as Islam?
So that's a good point. So our family was not, especially my father, and we weren't highly educated Islamically. So Islam in this area was just budding, right? Just starting, had maybe a few hundred Muslims in this area, right? When there's a the mosque, the first mosque is still here, and I think the prayer area is probably maybe twice the size of this area see about me, and the whole community used to fit in there, which is very small. So we weren't highly, all we knew for at that point up until I met Tmoa, Islam for us was you don't eat pork, you pray 5 times a day, you fast during Ramadan, and you wear a kufi. That was pretty much Islam. My father used to pray in English, used to the whole Salah in English, and that was pretty much it. So as far as it comes to like when I actually started learning more about Islam, the point I started studying and learning my Islam did happen after I met Tmoa, and that I do give them credit.
So it's safe to say that you learned everything about Islam based on what Jelani had implemented. I think it's fair to say that.
Absolutely not, because everything I learned was actually self-taught through that period. So I know like the first time that I did learn some bits and things here and there, which primarily came when I went to my first retreat, right? Muslim summer camp or whatever. And now we're talking back in the 90s where the retreat was primarily, let's say 60% sitting and laying around and doing nothing. Maybe 20% sleep. Maybe I might give the next majority part was military training, marching through the woods, doing military tactics, learning how to assassinate people, martial arts classes, PT, that type of stuff. Then there was some Islamic classes mixed in there, which the only thing I remember learning during those first retreats is Abdul Hamid Mukmin taught me Surah Kawthar. Remember learning that. And I remember memorizing some of the Arabic 40 hadith, maybe a handful, but then I would forget them right after the retreat because that was it.
40 hadith and Nawawi? Remember Nawawi?
No, 40 hadith Jilani.
Okay, so I have a question, right? So would you have sought more Islamic knowledge had you not like joined the Tmoa Jamaat? Like if you were just left up to your own devices, right? And you just kept practicing Islam the way you did, would you have sought more higher knowledge the way you have after leaving Tmoa?
I do not know. Allah knows best, but I'm pretty sure whatever would have happened, Allah has qadr, and I would end up in the same exact position I am right exact now. So I would say also, I'll give you this. Like I've always been smart. Alhamdulillah, Allah has granted me to be smart. He's granted me to be academic. That's why like all the Islam I learned was self-taught. I would get a book from somebody. Like I think the first one was Talim al-Haq or something like that, where it teaches you how to pray, how to make salat, the fat, I just learned it, memorized the things. I didn't know how to read Arabic, so I was memorizing the phonetics and totally jacking up whatever I was reciting. They used to say I sounded like I was speaking French Arabic or something.
Ilani, huh?
For my brother, so there was already a functioning Muslim community in Binghamton, which my father was very close with. He taught karate class there, close with the leaders. And one of the brothers that actually is imam in a masjid down the street, my brother is also very academic when he wants to be, he had an offer when he was in high school that the brothers were going to pay for him to go attend Azhar. This is back in 1990 something, right? And something, I don't know exactly what happened, that it got turned down. Like we're on the mindset that we're going to be NBA players. So like go to a foreign country. And, it's funny because like there's this one instance where this prince from Saudi Arabia came and visited. And of course, they come over here. My sisters, mixed kids, light skins, have the whitish hair. He wanted to marry one of our sisters who was like 15, 16. They were going to do it, but he offered her 100 goats. But to answer your question, so like, I don't know where we would be right now, but I know that the one thing I can give, and I'm not even giving it to Tmoa, I'm giving it to my companions at the time that were Muslim. So there's hadith, you're on the religion that your companions are on. So they knew about Islam. I wanted to know the same things. So I started off, okay, I need to know how to make salah. I need how to do this. I need how to do that. And that's where my journey began.
Can you give any credit to Jelani whatsoever? I mean, at least something. I mean, he did implement the Islamberg. Those Muslims wouldn't have been even in that area if he had not decided to establish that land. I mean,
so here's another thing. So like we're not going to get through the outline because there's just so much stuff that I've learned over the years. That is actually not true. So when I talked to before Jelani even came to America, there were already members from the Dar es-Salaam up here in upstate New York scouting for land.
Okay.
Already. It was already a thing. My mother gave the guy's name. She said, oh, yeah, so-and-so was already up here. They were looking in the Hancock area. This is even before Mubarak Jelani is documented as coming to America and encountering the Dar es-Salaam. The moving out of the cities and getting villages in rural areas was already a Dar initiative. And you can see proof of that because when you look at the people like we have Uncle MJ who is showing us his property and gardens and animals and all that, you see the same thing. The people that didn't follow Jelani were doing the same thing. They have their properties down south in Virginia and South Carolina where they tried to start their own Muslim communities in rural. So Jelani actually, all he did was come and jump on the Dar initiatives that were already taking place and just take credit for it. That's it. So if I'm going to give anybody the credit, I'm going to give the credit to the Dar al-Islam movement that started this process before he came. Everything that for TMWA members, everything you've been told is a lie. I could say that with the most 100% confidence. Everything you've been told is a lie unless you've been told to it by R2F.
I see. So we're right and they're always wrong. Jaffer, do you understand that you're spending your whole life slandering Al-Babi?
Well, I mean, the thing is that there's so many different things looking back at, like, I'm a young kid, 15, 16, 17, and that's why I'm very like cautious of who's in my circles. Because of the hadith of Rasul says, you are on the religion of your companions, right? Your close people. And because my friends and my companions at that time, who were African-American, who were Muslim, we identified, we're in all white surroundings. Of course, we're going to unite. These are my friends. These are kind of my companions. So, and I have a story that is our family has a minority story for TMWA experiences because most people in TMWA doesn't give dawah. People don't join TMOA. We kind of got assumed into TMOA just because of who our circles were, who our friends were. So like, I never really took a bayat or like joined or anything. In fact, so when we first started hanging around the lands, right? Again, we're the Muslim people in the town. I go to the lands and I'm happy, like, wow, look at all these Muslims and they're black Muslims. They're not Pakistani. They're not Arabs. Like you start feeling welcomed. And again, back then, like Eids and stuff, they're way different than like the modern times where you had to like pay for food and all. Like you could literally, like they're taking me to random people's houses. I'm going in and I'm eating like, as the one brother, dates and cream cheese and dishes I'd never had before, right? So it's being welcomed by people. And it was just like a great community spirit back then. But then, like, I noticed when I'm in these like Eid prayers and these gatherings, I'm like, you're a young guy. I'm going around. I'm trying to give salams to people, and certain individuals, older brothers now. These are grown men. I go up like this one individual. He ended up being a Khalifa. I'll say his name, Khalifa Mukmin or Amir Mukmin, the father of the guy who taught me Surah Al-Kawthar, who's one of my best friends in high school. I go up to him. I was like, "Assalamu alaikum," hold out my hand. And he's a big guy. He looks down at me, looks me up and down, gives me like a disgusted look, and then turns his back and just walks away from me. And I'm standing there, I'm like 15 years old. And I'm
Where
like,
were you? You were on the land or? We're
on the land in the center. Right on the land in the center. There was something going on. It was after prayer. And I was like, okay, whatever. All right, I don't know what that was about. But that's like, looking back, you see this attitude of like arrogance. We're better than everybody else. You're nobody because you're not us. Even from the beginning.
So at what was the first time that you realized, or let's say the first time that you heard of Jilani, and what was your mindset then? The initial, like, we have a sheikh, or was it just mentioned? Was it introduced to you? Was it explained to you?
It was, and I don't remember the first time, because now remember that my Islam prior to meeting Tmoa was salat, no pork, fasting, right? And then I was learning other stuff that actually, like, looking back, is actually real Islamic stuff. Like, oh no, you have to eat halal meat. But instead of like them saying, Prophet Muhammad said you have to eat halal meat, it was like, oh, Abuji said you have to eat halal meat. And I'm like, oh, well, who's Abuji? Like, everything was Abuji, right? And then as they're saying stuff, and I'm trying to verify stuff also by reading and then ask my father, and if, like, it checks out. So at some point, without you even noticing, you start accepting, well, whatever Abuji said, that's kind of like what you go with, without even me knowing who this guy is. And the main thing that when I really started recognizing, like, okay, this is like a real important guy to them, is during the retreats. Because I remember, like, and then seeing, like, knowing now what happens, like, they'd get everybody together after us laying out in the open sun for 2-3 hours, waiting for them to tell us what to do next. We get up and start doing these marching drills. And they're like, all right, practice. We practice for like a half an hour doing these marching drills. And they're like, all right, we're going to record. And this is going over to Abuji so he can show people. So that everybody gets all hype. And I'm like, to me, even back then as a kid, I'm like, why are we getting hyped for this one person? And I remember even during one retreat, I said something like, because you know how everybody has their moments. So they used to go onto the top of the hill. Who has a speech today? Who has something to say? And you could, like, just walk up to the top of the hill and give like a little speech. One of the things, I go up there and I say, you know, if we're doing something, we should be sincere about it and not just perform when the camera's on. And then after I said that, they immediately said something to, like, say, don't, like, pretty much don't listen to what that nigga just said. Keep on performing for the sheikh. But then looking back, now what I know now, all those tapes that they were recording of us doing military exercises, marches, and all that was sent over to Mubarak Jilani so that he could show his jihadi funders that he supposedly had these terror cells in America that he had control over, and they would fund him and give him money for it. And then it all ties together at the end. So, but it didn't really hit me until years after being involved with Tmoa, and it probably really came in when I married my first wife.
Okay, stop right there. Hang on.
All right.
You said something really, really heavy, that he was funding terror cells, or he was getting funding or whatever. This is hearsay as far as anyway. I mean, this is just something that you're saying. I mean, do you have some sort of like evidence? I mean, I don't know that this is well known.
We don't have evidence of him getting actually money from, whatever you would call terrorist funding, but we do know he was in those circles. Where's documented evidence of him going to, they call it the Jihadi Summit in Sudan. Like, they got him on interviews, they got multiple people, like they have him on camera. So he was definitely involved in those circles. And if everybody knows, we had the interviews that the main mission of Jilani when he first came here was he was the jihad sheikh. Right. So we have all these witnesses saying all this. So we have all these testimonies. But as far as like actual evidence of money exchanging hands, no, we don't have that. And if we did, he'd be actually in jail. So that's the thing. But he was definitely, because they would say at the thing, Shahsab shows these videos to his special guest. So he was taking these videos and showing them to some people, trying to impress them for some reason. So who else are you going to impress with military maneuvers, people slitting people's throats, marching? I don't know who you're going to impress with that besides someone that's into some kind of jihadi motive.
So at the time when you were there, was it known as Jamaat al-Fuqara, or was it just known as to you like, okay, this is just like some community Muslims that I go hang around with because they're Muslims and not black?
So at that time, it was known as Muslims of America.
Okay.
Muslims of America, MOA. But when you go into like the land for Jumas and different lectures, al-Fuqara was constantly referenced. We're the Jamaat of the poor. We're the El Fuqara. Like it was constantly referenced. So it became synonymous that it was the same thing. And it was widely known that they changed the name from Fuqara to MOA because Fuqara got labeled a terrorist organization. And then later on in the years, when TMOA or MOA got sued by, I believe is with the guy from the Christian Action Network.
Yeah.
They changed their name because they found, I mean, this is a deep thing. They found evidence on the deed to Islamberg, when Mubarak Jelani's wife, he used his wife, which the Caucasian wife that actually left him, to buy the land. On the deed, the original deed is from Mubarak Jelani El Fuqara to somebody, like I think it was Cleva Jamil, MOA. So it was actually document of Fuqara and MOA on the same document. And then that's when they decided, you know what? Let's add a T to our name and be the Muslims of the America. So yeah.
So when I had jumped in there, you were saying something about when you had married your first wife, and that's kind of where I had cut you off.
Okay.
So you can pick it from there.
Yeah, so that's when like I had to kind of like officially join the group, because I had gone through, so went through college, did a couple of years in college, and basically what's that?
Went to a college at Jaffer?
Yeah, so my freshman year was University of Michigan Wolverines.
Okay,
That's when we actually won the national championship, played with Tom Brady, a bunch of other guys that are in NFL. I was a nobody, so
Charles Woodson,
But after that year, that's when I was like, yeah, I got to get up out of here. If I mean, I'm not gonna say too much more than that, but had to get up out of there. And it was like, I need to get married. So got married. But when I expressed my interest in the person I wanted to marry, which was the daughter of Ali Abdulaziz, who he was locked up for some kind of fraud that he was committing from the Colorado community. We had Shahrazad talk a little bit about that. But he has like 25 kids. I was interested in one of his daughters. And I went through such this big old hoopla because they wanted to actually get me video recorded taking a bayat to the sheikh. And I was like, I ain't doing that. Like, why? I ain't doing that. Like, we're Muslim. Y'all know me. I come to Juma and the Eids. Like y'all know me. And I had become over the years very close with, I guess, two prominent families, which is Hussein Abdullah, the Abdullahs, Cleve Hussein, K1. And he kind of just vouched for me and basically said, yeah, he don't have to do that. But growing up through the years in high school, being interactive with those guys, like I know the Abdullahs. I'm very close with the Abdullahs. Very close with some of the Shaheeds. These were my best friends growing up. Mawaz, everybody knows the Mawaz character. He was in our high school at that one point. Interesting story. Just to touch on a little bit on like the nepotism, right? So like one of the retreats, there was, and this kind of like got phased out a little bit, but once you got away from the militarized retreats, but there was always like factions. So it was always like New York versus like the Cali guys versus the South Carolina guys. Everybody had like their own little groups, and it was like the Canada guys. So one of the retreats, the Canada guys all came. So you have Hassan, Hussein, Abu Bakr, you have Hafiz Isa, and all of them. They all came down, and it was some reason everybody was saying like how they were so holy, and I didn't get it. Like I'm outside the loop, so I don't even know who these guys are. But something happened where basically we all just started like wrestling, like play fighting, just wrestling to see who could get the better out of. And me, my brother, and our crew, we could actually fight. So we're like housing these guys. It was just play fighting, like not in the serious. And I was holding down K2. I think his brother was getting tussled up by some other guys from New York. And I remember we got in trouble, and we were told that we can't do that to them because we would knock the Holy Quran out of them or something like that. And I was like, wait a minute, what? These guys are like, it was like basically these guys are off limit. They're like royalty. And I was like, what the heck? You know what I mean? But even back then, you see like these special treatment. I remember going to the land, and I remember driving, like when I would go there, you would everything would be fine. But then from certain administrators' house, you'd hear Biggie playing loud out the house, Tupac. You hear that it was crazy times back then, but only certain families had these privileges.
So about what year was this when you were saying that they were, around what time was this when they were saying that some of these Canada people, the Adams and people like that were too holy? Like, was this basically, was it pre or post 1999?
It was, I think it had to be pre 1999. It was before. It was when Hassan was around. He's still alive. He was like a teacher. It was before Hussein Adams was really anybody, but it's still like it was weird because they would come to the retreat, but then they would hang out in like the special cabin and not participate with like the rest of the retreat functions. You know what I mean? So it was pre 1999. I was still in high school. So you're looking between 95 and 97.
Okay. So nepotism. I know you mentioned the word nepotism, but I mean, I don't know that any music was allowed to be played like that. I don't see how that's nepotism. That might be just some people doing, some stuff, and maybe they were, maybe other people were doing it
definitely,
too. Maybe they just had the best sound system or whatever. I don't know.
That could be true, but it was definitely nothing happened to them as a result. And I've seen plenty of examples of that through the years where, and these are my friends, you know what I mean? Like we would get into certain stuff or they would get into certain stuff, be caught, nothing would really happen because they were a certain Khalifa's son or daughter. While the same thing of another family, you know who they are, the same thing happens. And all of a sudden you hear that they're locked up in the shed, bread and water, these sorts of things.
Okay.
And then that actually reminds me of another retreat story. I can't wait till we have our retreat episode. But I remember the first time I seen someone get lashed was at a retreat. So me and a handful of our friends, we had this is our home turf. This is it's upstate New York. So we had snuck off the land during the retreat. And gosh, should have spotted this guy. One of the guys snitched. One of the guys snitched. Happened to be actually the same guy that didn't give me slams at the basketball game. Funny thing. But we got caught, whatever. They locked us all up in porta potties for 48 hours in a porta potty.
Yikes.
Right? In a porta potty. So they figured out what the punishment would be. And this is weird how the psychology of the mind works, because after they let us out, then everybody, all of them got lashed, but I didn't get lashed because I remember them discussing. I was like, well, he's not really part of the community, so we can't lash him. But I watched, and I remember seeing them get lashed, and it was like, I don't know. I actually felt bad because I wanted to get lashed too, because I see all my friends getting lashed, and I'm feeling bad because oh, nothing's happening to me, but these guys are freaking getting whooped, scars on their back, just like the slave movies, like Roots, which we watched, they're getting tore up. So that was the first encounter I had with lashing in TMOA.
Wait. So they couldn't give you punishment because you're not part of the community, but they locked you in the porta potty for 48 hours. But where were your parents in all this time when you're gone for 2 days just in the porta potty?
They didn't. I was on camp. I was at Muslim camp. They didn't know what was going on up there.
I see.
No idea. We're at Muslim camp, and of course, when we're kids, we're really stupid. We think dumb things are fun and cool. We're when you look back, you're like, what the hell was wrong with me? What were we doing?
This man got locked up in a porta potty with his friends. This is fun.
I remember standing on the toilet and then just for hours with my face by the vent so I could try to breathe. Just for hours, my face laying on the vent trying to breathe.
Okay, so you have other incidents that happened on the land, like your sister being lashed, they cut off your electricity. Can you get to some of those?
Okay, so, and this is after I get married and kind of get more involved in what's going on and realizing what's going on. So another time was my sister. My sister was involved. One of my sisters was involved in some zina with a young man. And at this point, this is after 99. My father had passed away. So at this point, me and my older brother are like the Islamic figures of the household, like doing our best, because at this point, my mother had apostated, our 3 older sisters had apostated. Me and my older brother Abdul Kawi, are like the Islamic figures in the household. Like we're pretty much like, now we're the Abu, trying to make sure our younger siblings are practicing Islam. Yeah. And I remember Khadijah Smith, and this is when after she had become an honorable, which, gosh, that, and another example of nepotism. Like you marry your child off to a senior citizen sheikh, and all of a sudden you're honorable, and everybody knows, it's established that this lady's batshit crazy, and now she's in charge of the whole entire Jamaat. But she had come to me and she said, it's your fault that your sister did this. So they actually made me hold her down while they lashed her. And I, like, looking back, like, my brother outright refused, like he ain't doing that, which I should have been on the same page. I don't even know why I fell for that one, but I remember holding down my sister while she got lashed, and they tried to say that it was our fault that she did what she did. And I mean, it's crazy, because looking at like the Khadijah Smith whole family situation, you have somebody that like, we know that she has emotional and psychological issues. It's everybody knows this. Anybody knows Khadijah Smith, if you ask them, they're going to know this. Now she's in charge of the entire Jamaat. Her son, who's another just arrogant, pompous idiot, I'm going to be very clear about this, is made a Khalifa just because that's her son, and that's because that's the brother of the Sheikh's new child bride. And then now, more recently, her husband is also a Khalifa, right? And these are people that, like, for instance, these people have absolutely no leadership qualities whatsoever. And I remember one time we were having a basketball tournament, and this is not right after, but pretty soon after Shabana had married Mubarak Jelani. And we had a basketball tournament. And everybody knows the basketball tournaments in Tmoa were like fundraisers, raise money for the youth or whatever. That changed over the years, but I won't get into that now. It costs $5 to get in. And everybody knows it's for charity, pretty much. This brother, Ibrahim Smith, had a whole hissy fit outside in the lobby, refusing to pay $5, and then yelling at the top of his lungs, "Do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? Do you know who my brother-in-law is? You want to charge me $5?
Yes, nigga."
And I remember looking like, nigga, $5? Like, you can't, like, this is the type of people that they have leading them. And we already know, like this individual owes multiple people thousands of dollars. He's ripped people off in businesses. And this is the leadership quality that you guys have in TMOA, all because he's related to the right person.
Okay, so you just outlined how they don't have the leadership qualities, but you've also told me in the past about how, like, if a K2 was not in the Jamaat, he would have been like some sort of like great scholar or something like that. You know how you will tell me this. So what's the case here? Mm-hmm. Like, do you believe that he would have been, or is it just because like he happened to be in the Jamaat that he just turned out to be sped?
There are individuals that outside of the TMOA context, you can find like a handful of individuals that would be very good leaders, especially from the older generations, the people that came from the Dar.
Okay.
From the younger generation, you could pick out a few. We say that about Hussein Adams just because he has a certain charisma about him, right? He speaks well. He has a certain confidence. So outside of TMOA, if he actually learned proper Islam, and he looks good, he's handsome, all these different things. If he could use that good speaking, that charisma, like he would probably be like one of these YouTube sheikhs that, like a mufti maker or something. If he had the proper Islamic knowledge, he could be one of those people. But as far as like, because there's a difference between being like a charismatic leader or speaker versus a leader of people. Because if you notice, like the people that are like imams that are actually running communities and stuff, you don't really see them speaking. They're running communities. They're working, they're teaching, They actually don't have time to do like, I'm going to be on YouTube and make a video and all these different things. There's different skill sets that are required. So I don't know how he would do in that aspect. But based off of his track record in Tmoa, as far as leading people and communities and groups of people, Allah knows best if you would actually be successful in that.
Okay, I have one more question about K2. All right, so you grew up around him before he became, the Khalifa Hussein he is today. Did he ever like talk to you about like how he had dreams of becoming a doctor or no?
No, so I actually didn't grow up around K2. The only experiences I had before he became like a leader was like at retreats or maybe at like a Eid or something like that. That was it. Basketball tournament. That was pretty much it. So he never expressed anything about being a doctor. The first time he actually really came on my radar as being somebody was, I don't know if anybody remembers this, they called it the Nori discourse, where it was K2, Khalifa Khalid, what's his name? I know his non-Muslim name, Torah Rubin, Noradine Brooks, all these guys went overseas at the same time. Then they all came back with like positions. And it was like the first point where it was like, these are going to be the new leaders of TMOA, like phasing out the old Dar Islam leaders, and these guys were going to take over. And I remember having like a lot of hope because, even at that point, you hear about the different shenanigans with administration, politics, nepotism, all these different things that are going on with the old administration. And a lot of people had hope that this new administration would like change things. I remember my brother said to Hussein Adams, and my brother used to be his brother-in-law. He said to him one time that, back in the day, people would walk through fire for you. And he was like, nowadays, people wouldn't cross the street for you. Because like all those hopes, you find out that all these new generation leaders were actually way worse than the original leaders that were running things from the beginning.
I say sometimes that happens when some people are given things that they don't deserve or they didn't actually put in the work for. Even some of the older generation, right? They at least they did some stuff to like rise up the ranks, and they rose up the ranks due to them actually like doing some things that may not have been the best, but they put some time, energy, and sweat into it. Some of these people that are just giving stuff, that's probably why they were worse. But I do want to. We're not just gonna let you breeze by. Now you said that, and I'm on you. I'm on you, Jimmy. You said that Khadijah Smith told you it was your fault that your sister had got in the situation. So was it your fault? What did you do, or what did you not do? I mean, if you were, like you said, the kind of the Abu and trying to, kind of like fill in some of that role or whatever. Well, I mean, were you doing your job? Were you facilitating this situation, or what? Why would she say that? I mean, is she just going to say it, just pull it out of thin air?
Well, so to give a little context, she said it was our fault because the person that she was that she got in the entanglement with was had expressed interest in marrying her. Unfortunately, we knew the guy pretty well, and I'll just say that he was one of the Jamaat players. Had multiple sisters on a string, and plus the situation that me and my brother were in were trying our best because my mother's non-Muslim at this point. Kids are being raised in her house. Us being pretty much young men outside the house, trying to have our best influence on kids that the mother isn't like, yeah, you guys could do what you want. So there was like always a competing force. So even though we technically had the Abu role because our Abu is gone, we're the Walis now and have to do our best. We're kind of like hamstrung because we actually didn't have any authority, So I guess part of it is our fault as well. But the issue I have with her saying that we had to hold her down, it was more like a psychological tactic. Like, we're going to find a way to punish y'all too. And now is their way of like oh, we're gonna punish y'all. We're gonna have y'all in a room with a bunch of sisters holding down your sister while we lash her. You know.
Okay. I just got a question from an anonymous source. All right. And they want me to ask you, by that logic, is it Khadija Smith's fault that her husband committed zina in their marriage?
So by their logic, and this is how you know someone's a little cuckoo and shouldn't be leading people. I remember when, so like this guy's a Khalifa, and I don't want to discount the possibility for people having redemption and changing and seeking forgiveness and this and that, right? But this man had a whole non-Muslim family. Like I hear back in the day of like people finding out their fathers he wasn't going to work, he was going to his other family's house. He had a whole non-Muslim family, not like a secret like second wife or anything, a whole non-Muslim family that he was with, and he got busted. And I remember when Khadija broke the news, it was me and my companion Atta, who's her like brother-in-law. We're just driving down the road, getting ready to go to the basketball courts and play basketball or something. She stops us and she's like, "Hey, did y'all hear?" We're like, "What?" She starts laughing. It's so funny. Jamal's been committing adultery for the last 5 years.
He was
And we're
crying
looking
inside.
at her like, okay. And she was just like, it was like a mental break. She was laughing, giggling, slapping her thighs, and we're like, all right, we're gonna go play basketball.
He wanted to kill that nigga, I can guarantee it.
And so that we're clear, this same guy Jamal is a Khalifa now, or
yes, he is Khalifa Jamal now. Yes.
Oh wow. So
yes.
That's how you get to rise up the ranks.
Oh well, yep.
Yeah. If that's the case, I mean, then there's still a chance for even you to become a Khalifa in Tmoa at some point in time. I mean,
well, remember Hussein Adams said 90% of the members of Jamal are committing adultery. Well, he might not have been lying.
Might have been right on.
Yep.
Let's see. Let me see where the make sure we don't miss some of the good stuff here that we had. Let's see,
can we talk a little bit about the land boys?
Oh yeah, sure. Let's get into
the land boys, because I know the land boys are like nationally known, infamous, the land boys. So a lot of those guys we would consider in my peer group are younger brothers. And actually the term land boys is actually a derogatory term. But it has achieved a status of nigga now, right? So we used to refer to people that were on the land that weren't allowed to go to public school and were just on the land because their parents, we used to refer to them as either land urchins or land boys.
Yeah.
Right? So we refer to, but then this generation, I feel, and I actually, because, I feel bad for their situation. Because, and if anybody knows, whether you know or not, there was a point when they actually really strictly outlawed public school.
Yep.
It was around 96 or 97.
My generation.
Right?
Yep.
Right. So before that, we actually had an illegal recruitment thing going on because people were being sent to New York to go to deposit school to play basketball because we had like an all-star basketball team. Mubarak, your brother, was one of them.
Yes.
And if he gives me consent, I got some stories to tell you. So
yeah, he probably won't care, but yeah, he was one of them. We all the people on that basketball team were like the for us, like we were like my brother. He's 4 or 5 years older than me, but so they were like heroes. They might as well have been Jordan to us at that time.
It was actually a crazy time. Like we would be in high school and like we'd be seeing mobs of fans. We'd be signing autographs. It was kind of nutty. But a group of these people in New York had committed a mistake and had basically vandalized the school. And vandalized the school, wrote "nigger lover" all over the walls in spray paint, orange spray paint. just dumb, dumb stuff people do. One individual, this is like, it speaks to a whole different level of like the conditions and the cult mentality. He was more concerned with not being stuck on the land, so he didn't change his shoes, and then came to school with orange spray paint on his shoes. Right? And, oh gosh, too. So, and we noticed that they're starting to like investigate and look around. The principal's walking around looking down at everybody's feet, right? And we're like, oh, yo. Then we noticed the one dude like, yo, you have spray paint in your shoes, dog. You got to go to, I live down the street. It was like, go to the house and change your shoes. And he's like, I can't leave. I don't have a free period. The same brother, the same brother that didn't give me some lamps at the first basketball game we met, the same brother that snitched on us at the retreat, was the same brother that was supposed to go pick up his shoes because he didn't have any classes. And he decided not to because he wanted to stay in a study hall and flirt with a certain girl. So then all of a sudden after lunch, cops come in, they pull the brother into the office. And I mean, he took it for the team. He didn't snitch on anybody. He actually went to jail for it, got kicked out of school. But after that incident, that's when they said, no more public school. And now it was really bad because it affected all these LBs, these young guys that at that time they were like in junior high and stuff, like when I'm in high school. And now they're just out of school, living on the land, not doing any type of education, living in homes that have no heat, no running water, no flushing toilets. And then what they did is when they actually became young men and adults, 18, 19, 20, they all moved to Binghamton. And their only knowledge is rap songs, rap movies. They want to be drug kingpins. And they actually do become like little miniature drug kingpins in Binghamton. And they're known as the LBs, right? And it's very sad hearing some of the stories. Like there's one story that I'll never forget of an individual, being at a house and, like at just a non-Muslim's house or whatever, and going to use the bathroom and then coming out and saying, where's the pitcher? And the non-Muslims are like, what are you talking about? And they're like, the pitcher. And they're like, what are you talking about, a pitcher? And there's like, I need to flush the toilet. And it's like, just think about that. This person who's a grown adult living in America never knew what that little silver handle on the side of the toilet actually did. Wow. And was like amazed, like, oh, that's how you flush a toilet, not a juice pitcher. And it's really sad. And like these guys, alhamdulillah, they're like living their lives, but a lot of them have been in and out of prison. They had to go through those tough times, all because of this lack of focus on education that the Jamaat had, and let a whole generation fall to the wayside. And then when you hear these things like, oh yeah, we have doctors and lawyers and engineers and all that. Well, what about, because 8 out of 10 of the youth in Tmoa have failed. 8 out of 10. They're not doctors. They're not lawyers. They don't even have GEDs, especially when you look at a specific time frame. And then if you want to give Jelani the credit for these doctors and lawyers, do you give them the credit for all these high school dropouts, people that don't know how to flush toilets? Keep it balanced.
Because if they didn't do what they're told, Jaffer, that's on them. Obviously, the perfect Morse would never, if they follow his perfect instructions, and they would never get to dropouts and lower status. So, of course. And did they not attend IQOU? Because folks were getting degrees from IQOU in the 90s. So,
I guess, yeah, that only applied to a certain select people that were willing to lie about where they got schooled at.
Before we run out of time for today, I want to actually the warning from your father. I really want you to dig into that. I know I think the 97, 98 fitna or whatever is some good information. But I kind of, if you don't mind, I kind of want to flip those, and I kind of want the warning from your father to kind of come before that.
So
we might go through so many rabbit holes with the 90s, with the 97, 98 fitna. But the
so this is around 1997, 98, before I got married. And you're young. I'm a young teenager. I know everything at this point in life. I know everything. Right? I got the whole world figured out. So real close to my friends and my companions from the Jamaat. And I remember I had come from. It was after like one of the retreats or something, and and I was telling him about, like, I had said something to him about like Abuji said, or the Sheikh said, or something like that. And my father like raised his eyebrow, and he was like, because he was real close with the local community, as I said, and he's like, you should be careful about those guys. And I was like, why? Like these, I'm like, why? These are my friends. Like, they're Muslim. Like, what's the problem? It's just a Muslim community. And he's like, yeah, I heard about some of their beliefs and some of the stuff they be doing. And, the guys at the masjid were saying how they believe that their sheikh can come and turn into a white wolf or a white hawk and comes out of fire, and they do these seances and trance. And my father's like, real, like, like, I guess the best way to describe him is like the old Western cowboy, like few words, would just say it and then just kind of let it marinate. And then, I was very rebellious and headstrong. I'm going to do what I want anyway. So, but the last words he said, not the last words he said, but the word what he finally said in that conversation was, you should be very careful about them, because some of the stuff that they believe in isn't right. And that's the best way he could verbalize like that warning. And of course, like, yeah, whatever, Abu, these are my friends, these are my family, I love these guys, and that's it. And I just, didn't heed that warning.
Almost time. Sometimes it's like the what's the what we did last week, Luqman, when Luqman said to his son, sometimes that fatherly advice is right on point. But alhamdulillah.
And it's sad, because I've heard this narrative that people are trying to say, like, my Abu took bayat to the sheikh and like loved the sheikh and owed all his thanks to it's amazing the stories that these people make up about, like, just to fit their own narrative. It's crazy. But he absolutely was not a follower of the sheikh. He absolutely was not a member of Tmoa. He had a couple of friends in Tmoa because they worked together, and of course they're Muslim and like that, but he was not a member. He was not involved in our community like that. Whenever we had Eids, we'd go up to the land with our friends, and he'd go to Binghamton to the masjid.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So alhamdulillah. So the the 97, 98 fitna, and I know that I remember coming to the retreat, to a retreat, one of the retreats I went to, and like every boy was locked up. It seemed like all the boys on New York land were locked up.
Like
is that
30 boys.
is that what you're referring to by the 97, 98?
Yes. Yes. Yep.
Okay. So so you can
so without getting into the details, the young men and women on the land were involved in a lot. And I'm not saying this as like I'm looking down on anybody, whatever. We all had our issues growing up, being young in different environments. But the problem happened, like, and the thing I wanted to touch on is, like, they took a whole summer and locked pretty much teenagers and younger than that up for like a whole summer, feeding them bread and water, having them do work detail. I remember some of the things that they were doing, like they would just have them move a pile of rocks from one point, then when they got done with that, move it back to where they just moved it from. Right. And I was living it. Yeah, pretty much. Okay. Pretty much. And what's funny is, like, these names, and I'm saying names just so people can know, like, the hypocrisy of some of these people that are saying things. Muaz Abdul Haq, he would go up there and he would be their guard. He'd be up there chastising them, punishing them, doing all these different things. And then coming to Binghamton and being involved in the same things that these guys were locked up for. And then go right back to the land and go back and do the same thing. And these are the type of people that are like, again, if these are the quality of people that rise up to the ranks and become your knowledgeable scholars and leaders, that means there's something wrong with your community, right? The literally the bottom of the barrel, you got everything flipped upside down, are the ones that are leading y'all. And it's really sad because you look at the policies, the decisions that are made and approved by Mubarak Jelani, right? He's the one that said no more public school, right? He's the one that's telling parents and their kids that, yeah, the Mahdi's coming like next year. You know, I going to school. So my friends are telling me when I'm talking about going to college and this and that, they're like, why? We don't need to go to college. We're going to be in jihad in a couple of years, right? This is the mindset that said that you have 30 youths locked up in prison camp pretty much, right? Because, and let's be real, they're involved in what they're involved in because they have nothing to do. There's no school, there's no recreation activities. They're literally just sitting on the land doing nothing while their parents are running to Pakistan, being servants to Mubarak Jelani. So, and I have no problem if you want to do some like third party separation and give credit to Mubarak Jelani for whatever good that comes out of the Jamaat. You also have to give him the credit for the bad as well. And we know for a fact that the bad vastly outweighs any of the good in TMOA.
So you were not locked up with those guys during that fitna. You never were locked up there, or you?
No, I had a rule. And without saying too much, no Muslim girls. That was a rule. And some people didn't have that same rule, and that's why boys and girls were locked up.
Okay.
So
I'm just trying to figure out when you started to turn bitter and get butthurt about the Jamaat and stuff. So I'm just trying to figure out which incident might have done it.
Through all this time, all the stuff that I would notice about TMOA, because again, it would just be stuff that you could pass off as stuff being wrong in any community. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're going to have some butthead leaders. You're going to have some dumb leaders. You're going to have some good leaders, have some bad leaders. There's going to be some wrong things that happen. So living in that environment, you kind of just see it happen. And if it doesn't directly affect you, you kind of just like, oh, that's messed up. You talk about it for a little bit, then you go about living your life, you know? And I always had a thing, like, even if it affected my friends, I would say how it's wrong. But I was always of the point, like, okay, if you're not going to stand up for yourself, I'm not going to stand up for you either. I'm going to go live my life. So nothing really, it got like raised my radar as far as like something's really wrong with TMOA. To me, it was just like, oh, these are just like dysfunctional community. We got ghetto Black people in the country trying to run a community, and this is what we got.
Okay, so during this time, right, so all this has been going on, did you ever attempt to like reach out to like, the administration or Jelani and like ask about what's going on in the community, or you just like, I'm just fine just doing what I do now. I talk to my friends here and then I'll just leave? No,
so so after I got married, I'm like, at that point, especially like the first, like throughout high school and up to getting married, I'm like fully functioning in the TMOA. Like all my Eids are there, Jumas are there. I'm married into the community. And at one point, I was elected part of the first Islamberg Town Council. So now I'm like an administrative middle management, I guess you could say.
Moving on up.
Yeah. So, and I was actually very, at this point, I'm going to school for like, business management, economics, accounting. I'm learning all this stuff. And, I'm trying to implement the things that I know. And I wrote, I wish I saved them all. I wrote so many memos and like recommendations to like change different things. And I would submit them to, at that point, we had a mayor who was like the Khalifa. It was Khalifa Hussein Abdullah. And I would submit it to the council, like, hey, we should do this. We should do this. I'm not lying. I might have submitted like maybe a dozen memos. Not one thing ever got even approached. like even thought of. Just dying on the water. It was to the point where like, and I have a pet peeve of wasting time. I just stopped coming to meetings, stopped going, because it was like, this is just a big waste of time, because I realized, and here's the thing, here's the incident there where I was really like, okay, I'm done with this. We were collecting property taxes, and they assessed the property taxes, and they pretty much divided up by each household on the land. And I remember we ran into an incident because Khalifa Teak and Khalifa Khalid hadn't paid their property. Khalifa Teak, Khalifa Khalid, and Khalifa Hussein had not paid their property taxes yet. And I remember we had a meeting, and we called them down to the meeting. So now this is like local calling down the national leaders to like, have a meeting. And it was Hussein Abdullah, and it was like, okay, what's going on with your property taxes? And I remember Khalifa Teak saying, we don't ever pay property taxes, right? And they had like a little Khalifa back and forth, and I'm sitting here watching it. So you have the guys, Khalifa Khalid, Khalifa Teak, and Hussein Abu Bakr, K2, all saying that they don't pay property taxes and that they shouldn't pay property taxes. Then you have K1, Hussein Abdullah, saying, yeah, you should pay property taxes. I pay property taxes. I'm a Khalifa too. Then at some point, they kicked us out so that they could have a private Khalifa meeting, right? Then we came back, and then they like had it all settled. And we're like, well, what happened? Like, oh, we can't tell you that. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'm done with this. This is just a waste of time. Because what those local administrations ended up being is that they just really wanted them to handle all the stuff that they didn't want to do, like collecting money, paying bills, dealing with trivial type issues that happen on each local land, but have all the other stuff, all the real authority and decision making happen at that upper level. And so I just stopped coming. Eventually they replaced me, and that was pretty much it.
Okay. So did you come like administration later on in the Jamaat, or were you just like after that you were just done forever?
I mean, I've played various roles throughout the years. I've been, like I said, I was been a part of the council. I served as the national head of the Muslim youth group. I forget the name of it. We had so many different acronyms we used to have. I served as that for a while. Gosh, I taught in the schools, those different things. So there's been various middle level administration type things that I've dealt with over the years.
So how is it that you, so I'm listening to this incident where basically you say yourself that you kind of thought to yourself, okay, I'm done. Now you're done with TMOA, or were you thinking at that time, I'm done being in any administrative,
yes,
administration?
Done with being in administration, yes.
Okay, but so at that time, your belief in Jilani being who the Jamaat was portraying him or putting him up to be would it be safe to say that you were on the juice? Even though
not really.
Not really. So at what point in time, because I mean, you can't sit here and tell us you were never on the juice. Everyone sips the juice. I mean, no one is immune. So I mean, I'm hearing that, okay, initially it wasn't Jilani that really was the one who taught you your religion or did it, but the atmosphere was your friends. But at some point in time, I mean, at your peak, you peaked out as, best all around, top soldier, top guy. I mean, that is basically you became the face of the franchise. I mean, you were the face of the franchise on the marquee when they say TMOA versus whoever. I mean, that's your picture up there, like Jimmy and TMOA versus. So at some point you were that guy. But so there's a gap somewhere of they're not going to make that guy who doesn't actually believe or hasn't shown some sort of potential to be, someone who's going to carry this thing forward. So we're missing some stuff here.
So around a couple of years, so before up until maybe about me being married, for about 5-6 years. So we're looking like around the early 2000s. That's where I started increasingly getting closer to the juice, right? As I said, like the culture in Tmoa, like I couldn't, if there's any issue or disagreement, I couldn't come and say, hey, Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said this, or the Quran said this. So even dealing with like, debates with my friends, marital issues, whatever, it always had to be Abuji said this, right? So eventually you start getting, after years and years of doing that, eventually like you just start saying Abuji, 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 right? I got to a point, and this is just part of natural life. Some people call it midlife crisis or whatever you want to call it, is where it's like, okay, so I need to change something in my life. What's going on is not working. Because before that, I did what most people do in Islam, is you learn enough just to kind of function day to day as being a Muslim. You learn how to pray, you're supposed to fast, like the sins you're supposed to stay away from. And that's pretty much it. You listen to a Juma to get your little hype for the week, and you go about your day, right? But at some point I was like, okay, I need, all this stuff isn't working. I've done like, okay, I want to be the best basketball player in the world. Did that. Oh, we're going to win every Muslim basketball tournament. Okay, did that. Nothing's like, you get like a gap. When you don't have Islam, you have a gap. This is why you see the non-Muslims, they have these, they call it midlife crisis. They have these issues where like they have no idea what they're doing in their life. They have no meaning. They go out and they buy convertibles, motorcycles, they get super in shape. And you see the same thing, Muslims doing the same thing. And really for me, the answer, alhamdulillah, Allah guided me to find that the only answer that fills that hole is actually Islam. That's it. Right. Because at this point, I got a bachelor's degree. I have 3 majors. I have a major in business management, a major in finance, a major in accounting. So maxed out on like undergraduate degrees. I got my master's degree. Like I'm getting all these things. It's like, okay, none of this is filling this. Like I have a need for something. So I'm like, okay, I got to learn Islam. I want to devote myself to Islam. Right. And of course, after years of this like indoctrination of Abuji said, Abuji said, Abuji said, having like these retreat Skypes where you like to sit and listen to these things, and it's built up. It's okay, I need to learn what Abuji said. And this is when I pretty much started the idea of this transcribing with this reference project, taking Mubarak Jelani's video and audio lectures and converting them to book form so that they can be read. And that's during that process, I really got on the juice.
Okay.
Like I thought getting on the juice, because I actually I even made a mental decision, like, okay, because I never was like a camise rider. I always looked down on people that was like camise riders, people that would kiss butt and brown nose. But as you're taught in TMOA, this is the way to be religious. So I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and give this crap a try. Let me try. I'm gonna dive right in and see what it does. So I jumped fully in the water, So I was, after I got approved for the transcribing project, and it was working because I was getting direct messages from Mubarak Jelani, messages, getting gifts from him. How saying, oh, he's so smart. Every time he hears my name, they're saying he has a big smile on his face. So I had when I come to Eids, you got Hussein, a K2 calling me to the front rank. So I'm getting my reserve spot at the front rank and all these different things. So at that point, I was 100% on the juice.
Okay, so at this point in time, right, you are now the guy, right? So Mark mentioned earlier about how you're like the star player, like you're gonna be up on the screen, you're gonna show you it's Steph Curry versus Jaffa, right? All right. So would you say that you really enjoyed this point in time? Because you're like, okay, now I'm the man now, right? Like not only do I have all the outside stuff, I'm the man in the Jamaat also. So
no, I never. One thing that alhamdulillah Allah has protected me from is I never liked politics.
Mm-hmm.
I never liked. I had my instances of my what would you call your 15 minutes of fame. Never really cared for being that guy. I just never had a thing for that. So even the example of I would come in and I'd sit down in the back, and they would, okay, come to the front. I'd be like, no, that's weird. You're in the middle of Juma. Why are you calling me to the front? It was even instances where I would do something like a little project, And who K2 would like make this public blast, like Jafar did this, Abuji said this about Jafar, and I would private message him like, yo, dude, could you stop doing that? Like, I did this for Allah's sake. I didn't do this for all the clout and all that. I was really adverse to that. So and that's a lot of reasons why I kind of tried to stay away. If I did anything in administrative capacity, I was always trying to be like an island by myself so I could just get things done and not worry about getting like recognition and all that sort of thing.
So that was a question that I was going to ask, because if I can just digress just a small bit, I teach my kids, and I literally, personally, I say, I teach my kids aqidah, and I teach them tawheed like every day. We sit in, I pretty much like grill them on different things, make them come up with scenarios, tie it to real life events, and so I was telling them today, or the last couple of days, we've been going over clout chasers and how clout chasing is shirk. And because the kids, they understand clout. Oh, he did it for clout or whatever. So I tied that in and show them how. And I was telling them there's two. A clout chaser can be just a clout chaser, and it cannot be shirk, but it's still clout chasing. And then some clout chasing is shirk. But both clout chasers, whether they're doing a shirk or not, they're both losers. They're both, losers. So not to call you a loser, but the question is, TMOA is a community of clout chasers. I mean, if they can be known for one thing, if there's anything that you could say that would pop up, like first thing that comes to mind when you think TMOA, clout chasing, that's how people raised in the ranks. So for you, I would say, did you ever in your mind think of, if I do this little clout chasing thing to move up, or was your moving up in the ranks of TMOA just you being you, and organically you just kind of rose to the top? Because the reason why I say that is because we know usually a lot of people that do rise up in the ranks. There's one in particular, and I love his dad so much, I won't mention his son anymore, not because he doesn't deserve it, but because I love his father. And so, but we know some people that literally, that's how they literally clout chased all the way to wherever they are now. But so we know that's a way that people get up there. So for you to sit here and be like, no, I never did anything that I knew, literally, I did it simply because I knew that it would, ingratiate me to whoever the people who are looking at, to move up in the ranks. So did you ever clout chase, or
never clout chased whatsoever? But I did, at this point when I started, I did fully understand TMOA culture, right? So from my perspective, like let's just go to like the reference project. Actually, I gotta tell a quick story. It's a little tangent, but about the clout chasing. And this is actually described by the individual you're talking about during a meeting. And he talked about how you move up is, and he told his own story, and they were trying to convince the LBs to do the same thing. And he talked about how he would drive from Virginia or Philadelphia all the way to New York on the call from K2. Hey, I need you. And he would just drive. Then he would just sit in his car and wait. And then K2 wouldn't say anything to him for 2 or 3 days and say, all right, I don't need you no more. Go back home. Then as soon as he got back home, he would call him again and say, come back. And he would keep doing this, calling him, coming back, going back and forth. And he did this for weeks, he said, until finally, it's kind of like the whole Kung Fu story where the guy just sits outside in the rain on his knees and waits. This is pretty much what he was doing, right? Until finally K2 said, okay, hey, I got a task for you. And then now it was like he passed his test. Another story, individual came to admin and was like, listen, man, I need to fix myself. I want to help out. I want to do whatever I can. Just tell me what you need, whatever, I want to, because this is the only way you could like get allegedly holy in TMOA, right? So that very night, he gets a call from the same individual you're talking about, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And the message is this: K2's wife needs bleach. So the dude's like, is this like some kind of code or like, like, no, K2's wife needs some bleach. Walmart's still open. And this guy, he didn't have that type of attitude. He was like, well, okay, so go get her some bleach then, nigga. Like, but that was the test to see if he would get out his bed 2 or 3 in the morning, leave his family to go drive to Walmart to get bleach and bring it back to K2's house. That was his test to see if he's going to be a do boy. But for me, so like going back to like how it was never to gain a status, but it was in my eyes to gain blessings from Allah. So for instance, the reference project, the whole idea was like, okay, I want to get these books to people in the Jamaat that they can read them, have full access to Jelani's teachings, because we can't understand him on the video. People can read it, really learn what he says, learn the teachings and all that. But in order for that to be a success, you know that you have to have the approval of the administration and Jelani. Because I could have did the project all by myself without any approval or anything, right? But then when I come out, who's Jafar coming out and say, hey, I got Jelani books. Who wants them? They're gonna be like, oh, don't get those. Don't do that. He didn't have authority. He didn't have approval to do that. I knew this, and everybody knows this. So, and I had the right connects. I was married to the right family, know who to connect, because my ex-sister-in-law is Khadija Smith, now the new mother-in-law of Jelani. So I wrote up a proposal, sent it to her, knowing that that's the best chance I have of a message actually getting to Jelani. And I know that she would push it forward because she would get her clout by being the representative of this guy that has this great idea, right? So that's how it got approved. Once I had my authority, then pretty much, and another thing is I knew I needed help. Like it was a monumental task. It took us 7 years to do it with like 5-6 people working on the team. So, but then I can go and say, hey, we have this project. It's been approved by Abuji. Come get your blessings and help out. That's pretty, so I knew the system. I knew how to get things done that I wanted to get done. But at the same time, it was never so like people would say, oh, look at Jafar. Look what he's doing. He's the best. It was never even about that.
Okay. So you weren't Kamis writing, according to you, right? What does that mean exactly? Like, what does the term Kamis writing mean for those who are unaware?
So like, if you ever seen in a wedding, like a non-Muslim wedding, and the bride walks down the aisle and she has their train, they call it a train. Yeah. And you have like the little girls holding it up so it don't get dirty. Now, just like, people wear camisas and they have the little tail. Yeah. Now just imagine a grown ass man, 2 or 3 of them walking behind another grown ass man, holding that thing up in the air as they walk behind him. I see. That's pretty much a kamis right. You're just on call to do whatever this guy in authority says to do, just to do it. Right. And you see, like, part of this TMOA system is that each one of these like leaders, they start developing their own little posses. And multiple times during the time now I was on the juice, multiple individuals tried to recruit me to their crew. Right. Certain brother would invite me over for dinner. Well, okay, I'll come over. And then start talking like, yeah, brother, we got things to do. And I just need to know I can count on you. Like, all right, yeah. I'm here to work for, whatever. But these were attempts to like get me in their, I guess you could call it pod. K2 has his own pod, which at one point was like a Noradine Brooks and Ahmed Pearson's, Adam Brooks, these types of people, a Shaban, these guys. Then Khadija would have her own crew, which, female has her own crew, the goons. Everybody would have their own little crew that would like handle their things. And that was their way of trying to get clout and trying to get closer to Mubarak Jelani, because these are the people that hold the keys to the gate. So if you want to get invited, like Ahmed, I said his name, Ahmed didn't go overseas without K2's express approval. Like, all right, you did enough, you can go now. And none of that happens without someone's stamp of approval that's in administration.
So when you were saying how you started to get kind of those attaboys from admin, from higher ups, Shaji's smiles whenever he hears your name. But did you ever, because I have heard some conspiracy theorists talking about that Giuliani was kind of out of it for quite some time, and all the correspondence really was like a ghostwriter and all that stuff. So when you were getting these attaboys or whatever, did you ever like get a direct call or communication with Giuliani that you can confirm, okay, this is him, he's talking to me, and he's giving me instructions himself, or was it always through a third party for the most part?
For the most part, it was always through a third party, and that's through his the now Imam of Tmoa, Noor. It usually would come through her. So at some point, and I don't know at what year, but for years, and you start to learn how to decode admin talk. That's why I call it admin talk. So they would say, "Oh, this came from overseas," right? And for most people, they understand that as like, "Oh, Abuji said this," but overseas means that it could have been Abuji or it could have been Noor who said this. But they say overseas because they don't want to say just Noor because they need the Abuji backing. I've only directly spoke to Mubarak Jilani once, and it was during a Skype call. And it's crazy because coming up in TMOA, like your main goal is like, oh, I got to get to Pakistan. I'm going to get to Pakistan. This guy's going to see my heart and correct me of all my wrongs. And my whole idea, I remember talking with all my friends, was like, I'm going to be the guy that when I get over there, I'm going to actually tell him the truth about what goes on over here. Right. I'm not going to be afraid to say it. I'm going to say it and all that. That was me. So I was like, okay, I'm never going to because you hear all these stories about people being afraid to give him bad news and telling lies and all these different things. Right. So it was a Skype call, and this is funny. So Mubarak Jilani, he did have some good ideas. One of his ideas that he wanted to start like an online school. You know, I guess online IQOU, right?
By House Point.
So he wanted to start this, and he wanted, because at this point I was the one that put up all the discourses on YouTube, even against admin telling me not to. They didn't want them up there. I was like, yeah, I'm still doing that. I don't care. So I had experience with that, and Mubarak Jilani specifically wanted Hanif J. Williams to lead the initiative to start TMOA's online school, right? Because Hanif J. Williams has thousands of followers. He knows the online social media presence. He has all the experience. Ask for him specifically. So during this meeting, Hanif J. Williams was not at this meeting. I get called up to the Skype, and this is my first Skype call with Mubarak Jilani. Everybody's like getting ready, brushing out their beards, getting all fixed up. You know, I'm just kind of like sitting there. I got like a wrinkled like kameez that I just wore from home. Like, okay, what's going on? They're like handing me a brush. You want to brush your beard? I'm like, I'm using your brush. Like, get that. So anyway, Skype call comes on, and he, for some reason, they must have told him that I had some kind of experience with like creating websites or doing something online. And so he said, okay, so what can you do? And I was like, I can't do none of that. I was like, I can't do none of that. That was, and he just said, okay. And he just went to the next person. Right. And they're all like looking like, why would you say that? Like, I ain't lying to him. I don't know anything that you just asked. I don't know what he's talking about. Right. And then he continued. That's the meeting. He tore K to a new one during this meeting. And this is the crazy thing, because the meeting started off with him complaining that Islamberg, the people that living on Islamberg, were filthy and disgusting and keeping the land dirty, right? And he said, give them one warning, and if there's any trash ever found outside their house, kick them out of the Jamaat. That was what he said. He said, and tell them, right? And I was kind of amazed because they never told the people. So it's like, you guys are these devout followers of Mubarak Jilani. He just gave a command. How come you actually just ignored what he said? And so that was like the first thing. The other thing was, Mubarak Jilani specifically asked for Rashid Haq to be at the meeting, right? He said, like, Khadija told him, Abuji wants you at the meeting. And I remember looking at Rashid when she said that, and he did like this, and then he just left and never came to the meeting. So I'm sitting here like, and he's like a Khalifa now. So I'm like, these little things, like this seem small, but they actually have big implications, because it actually shows the relationship that the admin actually had Mubarak Jelani, right? Sir, he would, so like that command about just kick people out the Jamaat for having, if there's any trash in the house, just kick them out the Jamaat. That's a very like impromptu, off the hip, angry like command. So they recognized as such and was like, yeah, we ain't doing that. Right? Rashid Haq is supposed to be devout follower. Mubarak Jelani directly asked for him to be at the meeting. He just leaves like, I ain't coming. Right? And then after that command of kick people out, he starts going in on K2 and telling him how he's not a leader. Right? He's saying, you're not a leader. All you are is a parrot. You don't know Holy Quran. You don't know Hadith. All you do is repeat what I say. And he's saying, oh, Gia. And I'm paring it down. I was actually feeling bad for him. Like, damn, why this? He going in on this nigga, like going in on him. And one of the first, even though on the juice, one of the first thoughts that Allah put more that I had in my head was, why, if this dude's the top caliph in the Jamaat, and Mubarak Jelani just said that he doesn't know Holy Quran and Sunnah, how is this nigga our leader? Right? Like, wow, how is he our leader if you're saying he don't know Holy Quran and Sunnah? How is he a Khalifa?
Maybe Mubarak Jelani was ascribing to that, like Bill Parcells, Bill Belichick school, where like if I can insult the top dog, Tom Brady, all right, of my Jamaat, then I can insult any one of you going down the line and trickling down. I let you know that there's no authority here. I'm the authority, all right? It's my ship.
But that's exactly what it was, though. It was like a power trip. And I started... After getting out of Tmoa and reading up how cult leaders act and how they do, is that they keep the people that are directly under them emotionally and psychologically imbalanced. So one moment they love bomb them, and the next moment they're tearing them a new one. And that keeps them imbalanced, and it keeps them like they have to seek all their approval through this one person, no matter what they do. And I see that now. And that's all that was, like basically him letting him know that he was the alpha.
Okay, so I have a question before we get to like wrapping it up. So you talked about how the administration, right, would hear a direct order from Mubarak Jelani, right? They hear Shaji say this, that, and then they would ignore that and go do their own thing. Does that give credence to folks who say it's not Jelani, it's the administration that I have a problem with?
Well, so there is going to be examples, and they're going to be small examples of where the admin did something that maybe Mubarak Jelani didn't directly order, or not doing something that he directly ordered. You're going to find examples of that all over the place. But that's not really the issue. The issue is when you have something that is obviously wrong, because let's be real, everything bad that was done, the hand that's actually doing it is actually the admin over here in America, because Mubarak Jelani is in Pakistan. The only thing he to do is give a command. So they're the ones that's actually doing it. The problem comes in is that when it's actually made known, and in every single instance that this has been made known, Mubarak Jelani has backed up his administration 100%. So if I'm the president of the United States and I have different cabinet members and people that are in charge of different things, and my top whatever secretary of the state goes off and just does a mass shooting, right? And then now I didn't tell him to do that. And now I'm made aware of it. And when I find out about it and you're like, yeah, I support him 100%, hear and obey me, hear and obey the people I put in authority. Now me being the leader, I'm also accountable for that action. So no matter what type of loopholes you want to find, Mubarak Jelani, as being the leader of Tmoa and is supposedly divine guided leader that supposedly knows even when people sleep with their wives, then he knows of what's going on in his Jamaat. So there's either two options. This is what it boils down to. He's either 100% responsible or 100% incompetent. That's the only two choices in this scenario. That's it.
So you're questioning that he's a complete, perfect guide, in that he has to be one of the two. I mean, I would love for someone who feels differently to come on and kind of explain how we could not come to that conclusion. But I guess that's just your dream at this point. So yeah, that's I had There's another question here. I wanted to make sure that we didn't forget, because so a lot of the questions that we have had come in beforehand that are coming in now, they kind of are questions that really would be good to ask after the letter. Honestly, it would be
Okay.
after the letter or somewhere around there, because we're not there yet. So a lot of these questions would be somewhat either jumping the gun, or the context for kind of answering them would take a bigger explanation. At least that I would think. There's more
Okay.
context needed. So I don't know. Do you see any because I don't, especially the YouTube questions, I don't want to jump over them if people have asked them on this stream, unless we literally just cannot get to them. So do you see any of those?
A lot of the questions on YouTube we will have to get to for part 2, because a lot of it deals with like Jafar currently, Jafar after the Jamaat, Jafar when he's leaving Jamaat. So we'll have to get to those later, which I have like copy most of them down. So when we do get to them next show for Jafar, we'll have them answered for you, inshallah. The last thing I wanted to ask Jafar, right? It's not really a question, but there will be those from the Jamaat who will see this video and say, okay, this person Jafar, right? He never actually did go overseas and meet Mubarak Jabani. So how can he judge him?
Well, so I can judge him based off of the things I know he does, and I try to stay in that realm. Things that can't be argued. Mm-hmm. So we can judge him based off of the people and actions of those people that he has directly appointed to be an authority. We can judge him off of the things that he has approved, the things that are said that the people who he has approved to speak on his behalf have said, and the things that he has directly said out his own mouth that we have well documented. And you know, people do this like that one silly guy who was like threatening me and trying to like, you don't know anything, blah blah blah. It's funny because I've been invited to go overseas multiple times. One time directly by Mubarak Jilani, where he said, I have to come over there to see him. Right? It just never happened. Alhamdulillah, Allah guided me away from Tmoa before that happened. Another time when I was like 15, 16, Khalifa Teak was really pressing for me to go overseas during those early years of Pakistan trips. So, you know, I don't, there's certain times to be humble, and there's certain times you just got to say the truth. Like I was at a high level in Tmoa as far as like, you know, status wise and knowledge wise, as far as Tmoa teachings and beliefs. So again, I could judge him. We have all his discourses. I have transcribed. I will accept the challenge of anybody in Tmoa that knows Mubarak Jilani's teachings more than I do. I spent 7 years transcribing word for word, editing, I've listened to each one of his lectures at least 4 or 5 times. I've read his words at least 4 or 5 times. I know his teachings in and out, to the point where when I'm listening to his lectures, which is very hard to do now, not because of the accent, because I can fully understand him now, because it's just utter bullcrap, but I could finish his sentences. Like he tells that Taif story in every single discourse. I know exactly, like we go, so I know him very well. So I know him well to criticize him. And I would, for anybody that says I don't know him, I bet I know him better than you do.
Okay. So let's look at, let's do a quick recap of where we are, because I think the narrative, at least before even meeting Jafar. I mean, I've met Jafar actually. I've played basketball against him before, badly, but played basketball. He doesn't remember. He doesn't.
I remember it. I remember you showed up in like all the white spandex.
Maybe it was me. Not sure, but the thing is what I'm saying is that the narrative is that you, due to an event or a series of events, turned you from loyal, committed, dedicated member to someone who's just trying to tear the joint down. And it's almost like this the story of Shaitan, right? Shaitan was doing a bunch of good work. He was doing a bunch of ibadah, and he was offering to, he thought he was going to be that guy. And when he wasn't, as soon as he wasn't, he broke bad and did, so this is basically what we have heard you were before getting to know you. We our paths crossed, but we were not friends before, this. We weren't friends. So my thing is, looking to recap, you met through school, basketball, sports, or whatever. They're Muslim, you're Muslim. You started to get involved. Initially, you were not, just fully accepted, but due to your, continue being around, you became not only a member, but a valuable member. You married into, let's just say, a well-known family. Okay, so you weren't, so you had that. So up until this point, I don't, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't see anything that was causing an issue for you, or caused you some sort of problem, or could have been a trigger for you becoming bitter, or I don't see any. Basically, you're like a golden boy at this point in time, up into your story. There's no issues. And I'm saying this for the people who are stuck on that narrative. Right now, we've tried to go chronologically, but if you look at, so right now, there isn't anything that was, well, that's it. That's what, that's why he did what he did. So right now, up until this point, everything's pretty good. If you're a Tmoa person, you wouldn't mind trading places with, Jimmy, as they say at this point, So, is there, so just to be clear, was there anything up until the point where you have covered, and I think we're getting close to the point where you write the letter, you're starting to transcribe the things, okay, but up until this point, is there anything that you could say, or that maybe the detractors would say, well, it was this thing that started him on this, or whatever? Is there anything there? Because right now I haven't heard anything or anything. You're just someone who thinks that they're upon the truth, and they're trying to adhere to that and follow that truth as best as they can. That's what it seems like to me.
Yeah, there's absolutely nothing on my end that would say like, okay, it's caused me to be disgruntled. I've, throughout my years in TMOA, I've been known to be someone who speaks out, that is not a yes man. So I've done like little battles here and there about different issues that would come up, like just different instances, but it was never anything that personally happened to me to make me be like, oh, I can't stand this person, or I can't stand this community. I was living my life. There was nothing going wrong in my life. I had a beautiful family, kids, good job, good education, good home, no complaints, besides the regular complaints that everybody in TMOA has about the regular shenanigans that happen.
And so you referenced Hussein Adams kind of being getting a good talking to by Jelani and things like that. So whether it's that incident or any others, at this point, would you consider yourself 100% still on the juice, or does the juice starting to taste a little bitter, or is the battery kind of getting down
at this point, the battery is still increasing, it's still filling up. So I'm still the juice. There was a point I maxed out, like being fully drunk on the Kool-Aid. And that's probably when I won best all round at the retreat down, one of the winter retreats down in South Carolina. Then, and the way that, Allah's the best of planners, the way that Allah had everything set up is pretty much the way it happened. It actually, there's really nothing anybody could say. There's really no excuse. They can't say I was disgruntled. They can't say I was like a bad Jamadi. They can't say that Mubarak Jelani, like he's seen something like some hidden evil agenda inside of me, or whatever. They can't say any of it the way that it happened, because I was literally at the pinnacle. Like, Shahzad's good favor, top in the Jamaat, everything going right. And then that's when Allah started showing me, waking my eyes up to everything that was going on.
So was this around the time that you started getting involved in the COINTELPRO, or dealing with the FBI, or these are all the things that they say now? Because this is the thing. So maybe you were so good in such the classic Jamaati because you needed to do that because you were working with some government agencies to infiltrate and bring them down. I mean, was your father an agent of CIA, FBI, or did he work with them? And
absolutely not. And the thing is that's so dumb about that narrative is, if I actually was a part of that and that was my intentions, why would I write a letter in the first place? Why would I show my hand? I'd still be in TMOA. The funny thing is, just so we're clear, after everything happened, just because of concerns with myself, my safety, my family's safety, custody and family issues, I have been in contact with the FBI. I reached out to them, state police, anybody that would listen, because I'm trying to save my family. They don't give two craps about TMOA. But I will say this, the ones that you have to worry about being part of agents and double agents and all that, they're still in the Jamaat. I know who they are. I know the people that go and leak information to all these so-called enemies of Islam. And they're the people that are right in your camps, right next door. The people that are speaking out against TMOA are not the people you have to worry about being double agents. If I was a double agent, I'd still be in TMOA, rising the ranks and trying to be somebody, kissing butt, kameez riding, and all that.
Okay.
So basically, if you were an agent, it would be, I mean, you're so close that it would actually blow your cover and decrease your ability to do whatever spooky work you would be doing if you would not have written the letter. I mean, the letter would have actually taken away from that. The reason why I'm hitting this home is because there is a friend of ours was saying, how a family member really is stuck on the fact that that Jafar and R2F by extension is just involved in COINTELPRO and just trying to do some sort of espionage. They're trying to bring TMO down. They're working with these government agencies or whatever, and they're so dead set on that, stuck on that. And that's a good point to bring up. I mean, this if that was the case, being outside of Jamaat and making videos about the foolishness that goes on inside Jamaat is probably the worst way to do that job. But
yeah, exactly.
That should be known. Hopefully, if that particular brother sees the episode, that can kind of put some of that to bed for him. But I'm not sure that Allah knows best if that will do the trick. But I think we've got a good understanding of where we are now pre-letter, and so everything's great.
Yep.
But the letter is coming, and so I think that's a good place to look to do part 2.
Yep.
So Amr, anything?
Just one more thing to take it back off Mubarak about being spied on by the FBI and stuff, and you guys worried about infiltration. Listen, that all sounds good in theory, and it's cool to play this make-believe world where you guys are worried about, we have to be undercover. Half the stuff you guys post is on the internet. So if the government wants to track you, y'all have phones, y'all have Facebook, all the things that they need to track you, y'all don't actually live off the grid. So you guys are very easily trackable. What's his name? Abro was like, how do you guys get this link? Nigga, you gave us a link. So you think the FBI is gonna be just ready to hack y'all? If
R2F can hack y'all on our spare time, I'm pretty sure the FBI can get whatever they need from you guys.
So that's when they have that many folks inside of the group, and we're just gonna tear down this entire organization. So imagine that if the FBI actually cared about some ghetto broke Jamaat folks, they were like, we're gonna come tear down this organization. Y'all have no security. Y'all have some 14-year-old kids sitting there in the shack for security.
I've had Jamaatis contact me to debate me or whatever, and they'll be like, "Oh no, we can't talk. No, we can't talk on WhatsApp. Call me." Oh, so they can't track the phone call. It's like, oh my god, these guys are ridiculous.
WhatsApp is more secure than phone call. Real quick, our sister Persian Empress did have a question. I think we kind of somewhat covered it, but I'll ask it anyway. Jafar, at any point did you discuss or have a verbal disagreement with administration or members of New York due to matters of concern? Like, did you get any like serious, like
nothing serious. So after I started having a family, and then you start paying bills, and then actually seeing, like, you're actually paying attention to administrative stuff on the land, because like you're paying percent, you're paying property taxes, and as anybody, you want to see like where your money's going. So I was always the person that would bring certain issues up, right? I remember the first time I got a death threat in Tmoa is there was a community meeting, and it was about property taxes, and they basically made this policy. So like on Islamberg, everybody's supposed to pay like a certain fee for property taxes for each, and they charge the property taxes by each physical building that's on the land. They basically do a flyover with like an airplane, take a picture of all the buildings, and then charge per building. So multiple administrators own multiple homes. Like for instance, K2 owned 2 homes and like 2 stores, right? So basically the land was charged 4 times for his 4 properties. And what they did is they created some policy that would solely benefit the administrators, right? So everybody has 1 home, but they're like, if you have more than 1 home, then you pay a discounted price for your other home, right? So it was the funniest thing in the room, right? So like you know, you're like in a room and you're like, oh man, someone stinks, and then the first person's like, I ain't fart. Like he's probably the guy who farted, right? Right. So we're at a meeting, and then they say this policy, and I'm a numbers guy, and so I was like, that makes absolutely no sense, and it shows favoritism to the administration, right? And then the first person to say something was K2, and this is what he said. Has nothing to do with what I talked about. He said, I pay my property taxes. And I was like, huh? And everybody kind of looked and was like, oh, you must not pay your property taxes, because this is not what we're talking about. And I kid you not, after that, I got death threats. Wow. How dare you? Who do you think you are? When I see you, I'm going to slit your throat. I was like, oh gosh, okay, whatever. But there'd be little encounters like that, but nothing that's like, we wake up in the morning, go about our business. And, I was just one of those guys that was not, they would call me a fencer at that point, because you didn't get inside anybody's camp. You spoke out against things. You didn't go along with the flow, but nothing that would raise any type of red flags as far as being disgruntled or being marked or anything like that.
All right. So inshallah, we're gonna wrap it up here. Jafar did a great job going over the early parts of his life, from him being the Karate Kid, to being the only black, him being inside this small hick town where they call him a nigger and all kind of stuff, to him having black friends and now he's too white for them, to him finding out about the community and loving it, going to college and getting married, and getting closer to the sheikh and the administration, all this stuff. In his next episode, he's going to cover the rest of it, his infamous letter, his book, him actually leaving the Jamaat, and then where he is now. So alhamdulillah, Jafar, shukran for coming on, even though you're always here. Anyway, I'm gonna close this out.
All right.
Subhanallah, alhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, wallahu akbar, wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-aliyyil azim. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun, wa salamun ala al-mursalin, walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin, wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Ameen. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.